How do you start this? Welcome doesn't seem like quite the right word, does it? I hope you guys, when you walked back in, were able to take in all this, because look how many people loved your dad and all of these people who love you. It's a beautiful picture, you guys. I hope that you can remember that and that it will bring you peace. I really wanted to start with a joke, because Gregg would appreciate that, right? But then I thought, first of all, I don't have a great delivery and my husband would be mortified if I messed it up. And then I thought, I'm not sure that there would be one that was okay, that Gregg would appreciate to do here in church. What do you think? They're usually maybe a little off color, and I just wasn't sure that that was appropriate. So instead, Joni gave me something that she would like me to read for all of you. She wrote this, and so I'm going to read it, because the way she started is exactly the tone that we want to set in this place. She said, remember, this is a celebration, right? A celebration of a life well lived. A life lived through love and giving, patience, compassion, and an enormous amount of laughter. She said, I'm writing this on day 2 of Gregg's diagnosis. That's not who he was. It did not and it will not define him. Gregg was a strong man. He was an active man, a muscular man. He was a smart man with a huge heart and a wicked sense of humor. He, or should I say we, never sat still for long. Please make this the man you remember. She said, I've heard him say countless times, well, when it's your day, and there's nothing in this world you can do to change it. He lived his life, his every day to its fullest. None of this is shocking any of you, is it? This is the Gregg we all knew. He found the humor and he dwelled on it. He would show up to family get-togethers in this ridiculous Larry the Cable Guy shirt, and he would smile from ear to ear as Joni rolled her eyes. We can all picture both of those things, can't we? And after all, she said, that crazy shirt was bought for her to wear at a costume party of all things. But Gregg loved it. She says, I'll admit I bought 2 more because he thought they were pretty awesome and she couldn't keep his favorite shirt out of the laundry. Gregg gave of himself to those in need. He was a very compassionate person. He was always a phone call away, I can testify to that, and literally answered every single call that came in on his phone. After all, that could have been somebody who needed him. And who answers every call? 2 a.m.? After a hard day's work, exhaustion, it would not matter. Someone needed dug out of the snow, a patient, listening ear, a solution. Gregg picked up. Now mind you, this was sometimes at the expense of the telemarketer on the end, but then there's that humor again. And Gregg's humor was like no one else's I have ever known. This is Joni speaking it, but it sounds like it's for me and I agree, so. She said his humor was what got him through life's good, bad, and ugly. Something would happen and he would have an immediate humorous reply. His wit was lightning fast, oftentimes off color, and typically not politically correct. But come on, it was funny. It was hilarious. Joni says, I would then retort, oh my God, how did your brain even think like that? He made us all laugh, and yes, even himself. If you fell, Gregg would be there to help you up, but he'd probably be laughing while he did it. Banged your knee really hard? How'd that feel? He would quickly reply. Don't even ask what he said when someone's last name was Bennett, and sometime you have to explain that to me, because I don't know what that is. A piney squirrel was faster than a rat and scarier than a bat. The sayings he had were too numerous to remember, and I could go on and on. But he saw the humor no matter the situation, and he dwelled on it. Gregg loved us. He loved his family, and he loved his friends. He would tell me he loved me only because I told him every day, she said, that I loved him. Early in our marriage, I told him I knew he loved me, but he could also use the word sometimes to remind me too. And so he obliged. So most of you didn't hear that L word uttered from his mouth. But I'm here to tell you, he did love you. His love was shown in action. His love was an act, it wasn't a word. And he would say anyone can say it, but not everyone knows how to show it. I agreed with him, but he was also going to use that L word on Joni, period. She says, Gregg was the most patient person I've ever met. She said, I think that he was just preparing him for married life ahead. After all, he would have a very impatient wife. Those are her words, not mine. He would also have 3 amazing daughters that would also inherit their mother's lack of patience. Guys, I'm just reading what she asked me to read. That's all I can tell you. There was one thing that Gregg had no patience for, and that was a broken down lawnmower. Who knew, of all the things, right? She says, I remember one time specifically. Kirsten called and said her lawnmower was broken again. It was dead in the middle of the yard. The next thing I know, we are at John Deere dealership buying a new one. Lawnmowers and Gregg just did not get along. This is just one of many instances where Gregg's patience and his giving spirit collided. That's a great sentence. Gregg was a very accepting person. I think that this room testifies to that. He didn't care where you came from or what your story was. Gregg approached, listen to this, Gregg approached every person with an open mind. If you were rich, poor, had a colorful past, you were treated with respect. Always respect. He gave every single person a chance, over and over and over again. Am I the only one grateful for that? And Joni says, yeah, I was probably home saying, seriously, Gregg? She says, he taught me so much, and this is just one example. Gregg would not agree to this statement, but he was wicked, smart, and wise. I mean, he might not have agreed, but all the rest of us, I think, do. And I don't know if I'm going to get this name right, Mrs. Balser, that's what I was going to guess. Mrs. Balser in high school algebra probably did not realize that he could do math like a whiz. He just always said a letter should never be in a math problem. I couldn't agree more, actually. He said math is for numbers. Exactly. I would tell him he doesn't call it algebra and he's not using an X, but he's actually doing algebra. She said he would have a math problem solved and moved on before I could even carry the 1 in my head. He always knew what to say. He always knew what to say and how to see down the road. I told the girls and Joni I was going to read this like 8 million times so I wouldn't do this, and I should have read it 8,000,001. I'm sorry. He always knew what to say and how to see down the road. He could offer some of the best advice with a very level head. He was a really wise man. She wants you to know that he could nap like a boss. And I will say my husband was able just recently to do some work with Gregg, and he absolutely came home and said the same thing more than once. Of course, he might have started his day at 3 o'clock in the morning, so she says I tried to give him a pass. But he would come in the back door whistling. Oh, come on, can't you hear it? We all know that whistle. He would come in the back door whistling. He would get his blanket, which I just love. And he would say he was going to lay down just for a few minutes. He would proclaim he was not going to sleep, and nobody in the house believed it. They knew it wasn't true. Typically within 10 minutes, she says, we would hear snoring. And his nap usually would end with his cell phone ringing. He would answer it in a voice that sounded like he'd been wide awake. and he was off again to take care of the next issue. It might have been a 10-minute power nap, but he utilized every second of it. Gregg spoke of heaven. He knew God, she says, like he really knew God. He would always say, if God comes for me today, I'm ready. Oh my gosh. She says, I would always say, but just not today. And he would respond, but if today's the day, it's the day. And I'm ready. As much as he loved life, he knew there was a better place. She says, I wonder who he found to chat it up with first. Many of you probably know Gregg was like a huge into genealogy. Like that was a big part. He loved doing that. And so Joni said to me at the hospital, I believe, she said, you know what? When he gets there, all those pieces of the genealogy, he couldn't figure out how they fit and who was buried, but he knows all the answers now. I mean, come on. That's pretty cool, right? She says he's probably late for supper because he's either talking to somebody or he's on a drive somewhere. He didn't think he was social. Yeah. By the way, she says, Gregg, I'll probably be late getting to heaven. She says, you know, I'll be running behind per my usual, and I'll have to pee. Just that one last time before we leave the house. She says, if there are vehicles in heaven, he will probably just be patiently waiting for me, sitting in the truck, bouncing his knee and biting his fingernails, with the nose of his pickup angled up at the pearly gates, waiting for me to hop in the passenger seat. About 2 weeks ago, I was preparing a message for Sunday morning. It would have been Sunday the 14th. And we follow, as a church congregation, we follow a calendar that kind of lays out where we're headed. So I don't have to choose it, I just pray through it. And so this week on the calendar, it already said Hebrews 11. So earlier in the week, I'd been spending the week preparing and reading through it. It's one of my favorite chapters, I love it. I was reading through it and getting things ready, and I had no idea, I was completely unaware of the final diagnosis that Gregg would receive that week. And then Saturday night, Joni told me that the doctors said there was nothing they could do. And I would love to tell you that I hung up the phone from her and I just said, well, here we go, let's go preach this message, come on. I didn't really go that way. In fact, what I did was I hung up the phone, and after I cried and got myself together, I said, God, what are you thinking? I don't want to do this at all. But I certainly don't want to do this message, and here's why, because it's a chapter all about faith. Are you kidding me? In fact, it contains a long list of biblical characters, and the whole reason they're in the chapter is because they had this humongous amount of faith. They were just regular, everyday people, just like us, but they got it right sometimes, and sometimes they didn't. But they all had one thing in common: faith. And I didn't want to talk about faith. I wanted to talk about how life isn't fair. I wanted to ask all the questions. Actually, there was really just the one. Like, why? Why? But at least as I have discovered in my walk with God, he didn't back down. And even though I'm a really good wrestler, I always end up giving in, eventually. And so Sunday morning, through lots of tears and lots of sobs, I talked about faith. And it turns out it's exactly what we all needed. Because once again, God knows exactly what he's doing. And you know, I've thought about the word faith a lot. And I know it's kind of one of those Christian-y words. Do you know what I mean? I mean, we see it written everywhere. We wear it on our sweatshirts. It's on mugs that we drink out of, and we see it in walls, on, you know, in fun print and stuff all the time. But do you know what it is? Because you know, it's kind of hard to grasp faith. It's kind of harder to explain. So the first verse of this chapter, Hebrews 11, it says this. This is the author's attempt to help us understand this thing, faith, and it says, faith shows the reality of what we hope for. It is the evidence of things we can't see. I mean, you're welcome. That makes total sense now, right? No. No. Years ago, I heard a preacher, his name's Pete Briscoe, and he explained faith in a way that has just stuck with me and impacted me. Here's what he said. Are you ready? Faith is seeing the invisible, believing it, and then living like it's true. And once again, you're welcome. Clear as mud, right? How am I supposed to see the invisible? Well, hang on, because let's think this through real quick. Oxygen. I mean, I can't see it, right? Neither can you, but somewhere, my guess is, somewhere along the way, you had a teacher probably in school or someone who explained it to you. I don't know about you guys, but I can picture the cartoon drawn out set of lungs, and there was a color with the oxygen coming in, and then another color with the oxygen going out. You know what I'm talking about? We couldn't see it actually happening, but we can picture it in our mind, the way that it works, right? And they told you, you know, the air, the oxygen enters your lungs, fills your body, your blood, and then it goes out and keeps you living and doing what you're supposed to do. And somewhere along the line, you believed that was true, right? And now you don't even have to think about it. What do? You just breathe, right? We just breathe. Jesus, while he was here on earth, he spoke a lot about a place, a real place called heaven. He told us it was real. He even gave us some descriptions of it, beyond anything we can possibly imagine. And I don't know if you guys have ever done this before. The people in the room who know me well will testify to the fact that my mind is a little bit crazy, so if I'm the only one who's done this, it's fine. Maybe you can start. But I have a picture that comes to my mind when I think of heaven. I mean, I can picture something. Mind you, I've never seen it. I don't know exactly what it looks like. All I know is that it is going to be beyond anything we could ever imagine because it's perfect. It's purely perfect. And I think everyone in the room will agree that it's a little more perfect now. There's no sin. There's no fussing. Come on. There's no tears. There's no anger, and there's no sorrow. Do you know what there is? Love. Perfect, untainted love. Because you know why? Jesus said so. And I believe it. Gregg believed it. And I haven't seen this real place yet, but I know it exists. Seeing the invisible. Are you tracking with me? At some point, somewhere along the way, somebody explained this truth of heaven to Gregg. I don't know how they described it. I should have asked. I don't know how they described it to him, but they told him it was a real place with real people. They explained to him that there was a man named Jesus who loved Gregg so much that this guy willingly died on a cross so that the blood that he shed would cover over all of Gregg's sins. It would make him perfect. And they explained to him, too, that even though that man Jesus died, he didn't stay dead. Listen. He did not stay dead. 3 days after he was laid in the tomb, he rose. You guys, it happened. It's true. That body was laid in that tomb, and then on the third day, God said, here's the right time, and poof, he stood up. I mean, come on. And he lives. He got up, and he lived. And someone explained to Gregg that Jesus did that for him. He did that so that one day, if Gregg lived his life loving God and following his ways, he would end up in heaven too. And guess what? It's true. Gregg believed it. But he didn't just believe it. It's one thing to say we believe something, but Gregg lived his life as though that was truth, didn't he? He loved God. He loved others. Huge, huge proof in this room. It was obvious to everyone who's been impacted by Gregg how much he loved God and others. So if you were to continue to read through chapter 11 of Hebrews, you would find a whole list of names, like I mentioned, all these, heroes of the faith, and, Abraham and Isaac, and the list goes on and on. It's huge. But you'll also notice something. Before each name, it says 2 words. By faith. So picture it in your mind. By faith, Abraham, ... And the dots were full of what Abraham did, how God used him in a faithful way. By faith, Isaac, ... Jacob, ... You get the picture, right? And there is no doubt in my mind that up in heaven, when everybody gets together, they get to share stories. They get to say, I gotta tell you about my life and what Jesus did. I don't know who it is who's going to be able to open up the book and read Hebrews 11, but here's what I think. I think there's a new ending. Because I think now it says, by faith, Gregg, ... Here's something else I think. If Gregg could come back and say one thing to us, you guys, I'm certain, I just am certain he would say this to you: love God and love each other. And if you don't know Jesus, like Joni said, like Gregg did, like really know him, I would love nothing more than to introduce you to him. And Gregg would love nothing more than you to know his God. And here's the greatest thing. Are you ready? I know God. And because I do, I don't have to say goodbye to my friend. In fact, I refuse to. I'm not going to do it. Because this is not goodbye. Do you hear me? This is not goodbye. This is not the end. There is more to this life. This is not all there is. And I believe with all that is within me that Gregg, right this very minute, is living. He's living larger than can you imagine larger than what we know? He's living larger than he's ever lived. And it's perfect, and it's beautiful. And guess what? No more food allergies. You know that he's had a big old slab of bacon by now, right? I mean, you just know. That's what happened when he got there after he met Jesus. No more aches and no more pains. No more sore shoulders. No more hiccups. Because he is whole. Jesus said it. I believe it. And I want to live my life like it's true, just like Gregg did. So instead of goodbye, I'm going to say see you later to my friend, because I know I will. And yes, we grieve. We should. It's okay to cry. Loss is hard. And our lives would be different without Gregg Alexander doing life with us. But we can cry with hope, because there's more. This isn't it. We have hope that because of Jesus, death doesn't win. The grave does not get the last word. Because of Jesus, we have life. Believe it and live like it's true. Joni ended what she wrote with these words, and you're gonna love it. She said, the moral of this story is to be a Gregg. Come on. How great is that? She says, remember to love and to show your love. Accept others. Forgive. Help others in need, period. Go spread Gregg's humor. You won't be as good at it, just know that, but you can still share it. And on your sad days, remember Gregg's wit. And show people that L word. I mean, he might even try saying it, even though she says, he probably wouldn't have. The world needs more laughter. And Gregg made sure that he was here to help. Holy Father, you tell us that you are close to the brokenhearted, and right now we're counting on you to be just that. Because God, the loss we feel is heavy. May your love and your peace and your hope be bigger than the loss. Thank you for the gift of memories. May we remember the way Gregg lived and loved and laughed. Father, would you please allow the memories to come to us and to bring with them comfort. God, thank you for allowing us the privilege of doing life with Gregg. And God, would you please wrap your arms around Lloyd and Judy and Lisa and Laura, because they need you. Please remind them all the time that you are right there with them every step of the way. And Father, help us all to know how to love them well. Jesus, please reveal yourself to Joni and Kenzie and Kirsten and Carly in just unexpected, life-giving ways. Would you please fill them with your strength as they figure out a new norm that none of them asked for? Please, Father, give them a supernatural peace that can only come from you. And Alex and Zach and Corby, Father, would you please give them wisdom? Help them know how to grieve and how to love and support their girls well. God, please be really big in Cooper's life. God, show off for him and through him as he grows and he learns about who you are and who his grandpa was. So Father, as we leave this place, we do so knowing you never leave us. You will give us exactly what we need to face tomorrow and then the next day and the day after that. And God, we leave here forever changed because we knew Gregg Alexander. Thank you for his life. Thank you for his bigger than life love. It's in your healing, comforting name I pray.
But in John 20, there's a story, and it's the resurrection of Jesus. There's lots of accounts of this in the Bible, but this happens to be my very favorite one because it's told from the perspective of Mary Magdalene. And I think Gregg would appreciate this because he understood this whole girls, right? He got it good. I was able to tell them, and I want you to hear it again. Gregg married a really strong woman, and the two of them together raised 3 amazingly strong women who chose great guys too, did they not? He esteemed you guys, he loved you guys, he built you up, and I got to experience that. Being a woman in ministry is not always received well, and it's not always accepted well, but Gregg had my back. That's gonna leave a mark. So I think he'd like the fact that we're talking about Mary Magdalene. I think he'd like her. And she was a follower and a supporter and an all-in lover of Jesus. See, he was her savior before she knew him as a friend and a confidant. Jesus one day was out walking and he saw Mary and he realized she was possessed by 7 demons. And he saved her. He saved her from all of that, and from that time on, the moment he set her free, she was in. Wouldn't you be too, right? And she journeyed with Jesus. She watched him do miracle after miracle. She listened as he taught about heaven and the sacrifice that he was going to have to make in order to provide a way to join him there. And on this day, in John 20, Mary's returning back to the tomb where the body of her Savior had been placed just a few days before. She was there when he was taken down from the cross. She was appalled to discover when she gets there the tomb is empty. Her Jesus isn't there. And she's distraught. I mean, imagine. She's distraught and she's angry and she's scared and she's lonely and lost and her grief is deep. And so eventually she gets up the nerve and she looks into the tomb and she confirms the only thing that's in there now are the grave clothes. And she was there. She watched them helped wrap them around Jesus's body, and now that's all that's left. He's not there. And she's upset. And so finally she peeks down and she looks into the tomb and she sees these 2 men, angels, sitting where Jesus had been. There's one at the head of where Jesus was and one at the feet. And they ask her this crazy question. They say, "Why are you crying?" I don't know about you, but I'm thinking, excuse me. And so she says, "Well, my Jesus, he's gone. I don't know where they've taken him." And the men don't answer her. She doesn't get the answer she's looking for. They ask her this question and she answers it, and then there's nothing. And you know what? Sometimes we don't get an answer. And lots of times we don't get the answer that we wanted. But don't for 1 second think God's not listening. He hears you. And I promise you all, He is right here with us, weeping with us. And so eventually she turns around and she walks away, and she runs into this guy that's standing there, and she thinks he's the gardener, which I think is just a funny part of the story. It's not the gardener, it's Jesus. But she doesn't realize that until Jesus says her name, and that's it, Mary. Mary. And instantly she's like, oh, it's you. But get this, before He reveals Himself, He asked her the same stinking question. Woman, why are you crying? And if I'm Mary by this point, I'm irritated. Like, what do you mean, why am I crying? Why aren't you crying? What's wrong with you? And so the man, like I said, he says her name, and then all is revealed. She knows it's her Jesus. And everything He'd promised came true in that moment. Everything He told her about heaven and about living again, it was right there in the face of her Christ. And you know, I want you to realize that Jesus revealed Himself to her in the middle of her grief. He didn't wait till she dried her tears. He didn't tell her to buck up and get it together. No, He met her. Greg would, you're right. Joni said Greg would tell us all to buck up and get it together, but Jesus met Mary in the midst of her grief because He knew she needed to cry. She needed to mourn because loss is tough. Loss is heavy. Guys, it's okay to cry. Even though Greg said not to, doggone it. It's okay to cry. And I want you to know, and I don't understand this, it's one of those cool, mysterious God things. But if you let God meet you in your grief, you will experience Him, girls, I promise. You will experience Him in ways you never have before. It's deep. And He can meet you where you are. And that's exactly what He did for Mary Magdalene. She was broken and sobbing when He revealed herself to him. But then guess what? As soon as she saw it was Him, it all changed. It all changed because everything that she had heard and it didn't make sense, now it did. And here's the thing. Some of you have probably read this, and this is the part of the story that's always driven me crazy. Because it says, Mary goes to hug Jesus and He says, don't cling to me. And I'm thinking, dude, come on. If I'm Mary, I'm not letting go. He's not getting away again on my watch. But here's what that meant. Jesus wasn't saying, don't hug me. He knew Mary needed to. What He was saying to her was, we can't stay here for very long because we got stuff to do. He said, take your time and grieve and mourn, but don't stay there forever. We got stuff to do. And He said, Mary, I want you to do this for me. I want you to go and I want you to tell all the people. Go back to those guys that I did life with and you tell them. Mary, you tell them I'm alive. You tell them that there is life after death. You don't let them forget, Mary. It's your job. You go, you tell. Don't let them forget it. And guess what? That is the same message that God gives to us, and I think Greg would want us to know, right? Mourn. Do it. It's not healthy if you don't. Cry and let that happen, but let God meet you there. Here's a promise I can give to you because God has given it to all of us. He will heal you. He will meet you exactly where you are. He will give you the strength to take, girls, the next step, and the step after that, and the step after that. And all you got to do is look for that next step right now. He will meet you, guys, as you support these gorgeous ladies in your life, and your most amazing mother-in-law, and you guys. He's going to give you everything you need. Let Him do it. Let Him meet you. Let Him cry with you. And then go. Go and make sure nobody forgets about Greg. Make sure that his story, his big, huge, life-changing story, my life is different because of Gregg. Make sure everybody knows. Don't let him forget. And above all, don't let him, he would want them to know his Jesus. I promise. I want you all to know that when he came in and told me about his diagnosis the first time with a smile, because here's what he said as I started to cry, and he told me I couldn't cry. And I said, hold on a minute. But he said, listen, no matter what the outcome, I already won. And he meant it, didn't he?
Wholeheartedly.
Wholeheartedly, he meant it. And you know what, guys? He wins. He's winning right this minute. But I said to him, but Gregg, I don't. I'm not winning just yet. I'll get there, but I'm not winning just yet. So he knew I needed the space to grieve. But in true Gregg fashion, we talked for a few minutes, and we were at the church, and I had to, do the business of turning off the lights and locking the door. And as Gregg left, he turned around, he walked back in, and he said, listen, if you need to talk, I'm here. I said, what? That's my line. That's what I'm supposed to say. But you know what? He meant it. He meant it. He loved strong. He loved deep. And that's going to leave a mark. So grieve. It's okay. Even if he didn't want you to. He knows we are. It's fine. But don't stay there. Allow God to heal you in that place. When the time is right, go. Go and do what he's called us to do, and do it in honor of Gregg Alexander. Can you think of any better way to do it? So I know this is heavy. I gotta say, this is the most difficult one I've done, but it's a weird mix of, I know where he is, and yet I'm not ready. I'm not ready. But God knows what he's doing. So as we leave here, grieve. Do it. Mourn. It's okay. Take time to let God heal you, and then just go. Tell his story. God's and Gregg's. Make sure you do what he wants you to do, which is to love others really well, and above all else, to love God. So, Father, your word tells us in one of the Psalms that I will lift my eyes to the hills. It says, where does my help come from? It comes from you, Father, the maker of heaven and earth. And right now, Lord, we are coming before you asking for that help. We are asking that you keep our eyes focused on you. And I know, being here in this space, in this moment, it's difficult, and it's hard not to feel the finality of this moment. But Lord, it's not the end. Please keep our eyes on you, because we know, because of you, this is not goodbye. You are our help in the days ahead. Father, would you please remind each one of us that truth over and over and over again. This isn't it. And Lord, as a special favor to me, would you please bless Gregg's family? Like a lot. Would you please take care of them? And Lord, comfort his friends. They meant a really lot to him. And now, Jesus, meet us where we are right here. And don't fail to take us where you want us to be. And it's in your healing name we pray. Amen. Amen. And we're not going to say goodbye. I'm going to say, I will see you later, my friend.
Amen.
This